Welcome to the Soul Deep Podcast with Jessica Janty. Join me as we dive deep into raw, real, in-depth conversations about life, love, relationships, sexuality, spirituality, what it is we're really here for, and anything in between. I want this to feel like a safe space for anyone on a spiritual journey, trying to find answers in your truth by having open heart and open-minded conversations. And my hope for you as a listener is that you feel this is a safe space here, a place to hear things from a different perspective that may challenge you and your thinking in the best way possible, allowing you to give grace to how you've been raised or what you've been taught or told to believe. And perhaps you find your truth as I search for mine on this journey we call life. So grab your favorite drink, cozy on up to your couch or wherever you listen from, and join me for these soul deep conversations. Hello, we are here live. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, this is our first episode in the greenhouse. I'm super excited to have you back here with Soul Deep with Jessica Janty. I have a beautiful guest here with me today. So excited you are here. Before we go too much into letting you introduce yourself, I just want to speak a little bit about why Christine is here. It's actually kind of a crazy story how we even met and found each other. And I've known you for probably about
2 years.
It's been about 2 years. And it was through breath work because I was in the process of becoming breathwork certified, and I needed people for breathwork. And I don't remember, how did you
came to my first retreat.
Yes, that's actually how
you came to my first retreat and we connected instantly and had some really great conversations over a glass of wine at the retreat. And we stayed connected, and I was needing some practicums for my own coaching, and you needed practicums for yours. I think I filled your breathwork practicums for you.
You sent it. I think you sent it to so many people, and so many people that you sent wanted to breathe with me, which was amazing. And so, yeah, you sent me Kylie, who then we have like kind of come full circle with that. And yeah. And so we've just stayed connected throughout this whole time, and we've met up a few times, which is great. And now you took the morning to come here to meet me. We did some yoga this morning, some breakfast, and now we're here
taking care of our bodies and our souls, and then connect and share.
Yes. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I just want to say that I'm very proud of you. And it's been a journey to watch your own journey, right? It's been an honor to watch you on your journey and to support you and to feel your support in my own journey as well. So it feels really full circle to be here.
Yes, I love it. Well, before we go too much further, every time I do an episode, I like to start with a little bit of grounding. So a little bit of breath, if you're okay with it.
Absolutely.
All right. So if you are with us here and you are driving, do not close your eyes. But if you're in a place that you feel comfortable, closing your eyes and just being with your body here for a couple minutes, we'll just take some slow, deep breaths in through our nose and out the mouth. And just keeping the cycle of breath going, just grounding into your body here, just fully being present with your breath, with your body. Giving yourself this powerful pause, this moment just to be with your breath. Maybe giving some gratitude for your breath, for bringing you here today to this episode, to join in with us here. Just a couple more breaths in through the nose and out. And by doing this, we're allowing our body to really drop into that parasympathetic, the rest and digest, giving us a moment of peace and stillness inside the craziness that the world can bring to us sometimes. So one more big breath in through the nose, and a big exhale. And just coming back to the space whenever you feel comfortable. Thank you for doing that with me.
Can I ask you a question? I'm gonna
Absolutely.
throw you for a loop.
Absolutely.
Parasympathetic
Mhm.
nervous system. So you
Yeah.
mentioned that.
Mhm.
My training, which I will talk about what my training is not in breathwork specific.
Mhm.
In our yoga class this morning, she mentioned resting your head and how your head feeling that support is a way of connecting with your parasympathetic nervous system.
Mhm.
And I was just curious if you could talk about what the parasympathetic nervous system means, because I think that can be a big word for people who maybe don't do a lot of breathing, or I mean, we all do a lot of breathing, but a lot of intentional breathing and understanding what meditation and all of those tools do. Can I ask you to just like maybe explain that?
Absolutely.
Quickly?
Yeah.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for asking. Yeah. So you have your nervous system is made up of your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous system. So sympathetic, you think of like fight or flight. So if you're anxious, nervous, stressed out, you can get really sweaty and warm and lots of different reactions when your sympathetic nervous system like triggers.
My belly. I feel it all in my belly.
And I usually get it in my chest or just, I get sweaty and hot and and you feel like it's almost like you're being chased. So when your sympathetic is activated, your body needs to do something with that. It needs to move, it needs to run, it needs to whether dance or doing something to get that energy out, because that's a buildup of this nervous energy. Our parasympathetic is the rest and digest. So this is when we can allow ourselves this time to pause, to breathe. You can help your nervous system with things like cold plunges, cold showers. I think you've done the dipping your head in the cold bucket and things like that. That's one way to help. Breath work, meditation, just really slowing your body down. This allows your body to feel safe, and it allows for healing, because when we are in this constant sympathetic, this fight or flight, this nervousness, our body can't heal because it's turned on to fleeing. It's turned on to helping you fight, helping you do what you need to do.
Keeping yourself safe.
Keeping yourself safe, yeah. So if we can get into the parasympathetic more often, then we can allow our body this rest, this calm, the healing. And I think for a lot of people that try to do meditation or breath work, they're like, I just can't do it. My body can't, I can't turn my mind off. I can't, my body won't rest. Or they'll get really irritated with it and they just stop. But what you need to do is push past that resistance that you have, or the frustration that you have with it, because your body's just been used to this sympathetic state for so long. Like for me, I worked in the ICU, and you were constantly on. You had to be on. You had to be saving lives. And then you'd come home, and then you've got kids, or you've got family, or any job that you're in can be stressful, really. You have deadlines, you have bosses, you have coworkers. It's just so much. Yes. And so if we can really learn, and it's a process, it's learning. It's like going to the gym and working out. Like, you're not going to have the desired result that you want of your body the first time you go to the gym. It's the same with meditating or trying to turn on that parasympathetic so you can rest, because it is a process. It's learning. It's just little bits at a time, and then you can build on that so that you can allow that rest and that healing.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Yes, it does. I am like, as a trained person, which again, I'll talk about my training here in 1 second, but I think a lot of times we use, as people in the healing community, we use terms that it's just helpful to, speak the language and explain exactly. So I heard, that was the second time I heard parasympathetic today, and I was like, okay, let's just clarify and talk about it. So thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, would you like to just talk about yourself?
Yes.
Who you are?
That's strange. Do you want to talk about yourself? So I'll introduce myself. So I am Christine Hopkins. I am a certified sex, love, and relationship coach. I studied under Layla Martin. So I am a VITA certified coach. So my methodology is tied into what I call the body mind. I should say what Layla called the body mind, but to describe what that means, that is the part of you that is not your thinking mind. It is like the conditioning that lives deep inside of your body. So the conditioning that happens when your sympathetic nervous system is turned on. You are constantly storing messages. You are constantly storing thoughts and belief systems into your body, and that can affect the way that you move throughout the world. I specialize in sexuality. because I believe that the deepest opening, the deepest portal is through the darkest shadows, if you will, right? Those places that maybe we're afraid to look at. We're afraid to look at them for a reason. So through my own sexuality, I learned to liberate myself, to understand what is true to me, what was given to me, what was taught to me that maybe doesn't align with who I am. And so it was through tapping into my sexuality, tapping into pleasure, loving my body in a way that I was actually taught to shame. I was able to find my freedom and my liberation. So that is what I do. So I coach people one-on-one. I have led retreats and group classes, but I coach under the business name of the Intuitive Unraveling. So my thought is, my tagline is unravel yourself whole. I firmly believe that in the healing process, a lot of people think I have to heal this part away from me. I have to get rid of this part of me that I don't like, this part of me that acts up, this part of me that is, bringing, explosive or angry or whatever it is. But the fact of the matter is, I believe that by inviting those parts of us in and spending time with those parts, getting to know them, understanding why they're acting up, that is where the real healing happens.
I love that.
Thank you. Thank you.
You describe that so beautifully. So
thank you.
Thank you. Yes. And one thing I forgot, I've been telling every time I do a podcast, I've been talking about what we're drinking. But today we kind of had like a rush morning. We already did like our coffee, chai, whatever. So I just have some water.
Same.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers to water in our hydro flask.
Hydrating.
Yes. Which we have to do because yoga was really great this morning. But you got to get those toxins moving and move all the stuff that you kind of pulled out of your muscles.
Yes, so absolutely.
Hydration is important.
Yeah. So one thing that I like to ask everybody on the podcast here is, what do you think your soul purpose is here on this earth, this time?
So I'm going to share with the audience. Jess obviously knows this about me, but I've actually lost both of my parents in the last 8 weeks. So, or should I say 6 weeks, 7 weeks, somewhere in there. So my soul purpose, I feel like specifically right now, I am in a space where I have sort of like gone into the underworld and I've been analyzing and working to understand my purpose as I'm watching two people that modeled purpose to me no longer be the leader of my life. Let me say that differently. My parents weren't the leader of my life, but they were the role model of my life. That's better language. So with that, I used to say that my soul purpose was to liberate women, to lean into their sexuality, to release shame from their sexuality. Since my parents have passed, I actually think that my soul purpose is to teach people and guide people into their shadows. And for me, my sexuality was a space that exposed my shadows. I want to clarify that when I say the word shadow, that is not meant to be dark. That is not necessarily meant to be the bad parts of you. The shadow self is any part of you that you reject, abandon, or set aside to seek love, to seek acceptance, or whatever it is that you're seeking, right? Essentially, our shadows are pieces of us that we've set aside. And my shadows were pieces that acted out. My shadows were pieces that were angry. And I spent my life shaming those things. But really, I believe that the real truth is embracing that anger and embracing that part of me that's acting out and saying, you are welcome here. You're not a bad girl, right? Yeah. You are welcome here. And through that, I have been able to really understand what loving myself means. So that is my purpose, is to expand other people's horizons to understand that all of you is welcome, even if it's a part of you that you think is bad.
Yeah.
All of you is welcome.
Mm.
So
I love that.
it's still a work in progress, specifically as I step into this new part of my life where I'm the adult. Right? Like there is no mom and dad to lean on. Here I am, 39 years old, and I'm like, oh no, when are the adults showing up? It's me, and I need to lean on me.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was kind of a non-answer answer.
Oh, it's beautiful.
But I would say it's like a work in progress right now.
And I think everybody's sole purpose is their own. So there's nobody that can tell you that it's right or wrong, or that it needs to be more or less. It's yours.
Or it needs to be like right here as it is. I mean, that is one thing about life that I'm learning in the last 8 weeks is it is ever changing, and it is actually a gift for you if you choose to lean into it as a gift instead of leaning into the pain and being a victim of what's in front of you. The victim is my shadow self that I have come to meet over the last 8 weeks. So I'm here to tell everybody that I am a victim with victim mentality. I do not have to get rid of her. She is welcome here, and she's teaching me a lot.
I love that. So many great things in there. First, I applaud you for being vulnerable and sharing all of that here. Especially another thing to applaud you for, 8 weeks. I mean, your dad literally passed like
Sunday. Oh, like 6 days ago.
Yeah.
6 days
and
ago.
I mean, I think I've asked you a couple times this week, like, we can put this off. We don't have to do this. And here you are showing up as yourself in this beautiful way. So I just want to give you credit for that.
Very much.
Yeah.
With that, I will say if there are any tears that come out today, I know that it's a safe space and that there is no judgment. So that's why it felt safe.
Always
right?
welcome tears here. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so with that, I think you and I kind of talked about me mentioning this before we recorded today. But I do want to say out loud to the people who are listening, if my friends and family are listening, or friends and family of my parents or my family, thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting me. But I do also want to say out loud that I am going to speak vulnerably and truthfully about my own personal experience. And it is all with love. And I'm not saying anything negative about my parents. I'm just speaking truth, right? And I'm speaking that out loud because I want anyone who maybe would be triggered by that to just know that all of the words that I speak today are with love. Nothing is going to be, directly negative, but there will be truth inside of my message. So I think that's important because everything is so fresh and raw right now. So if there's anyone out there that feels like, with that, maybe I want to tune out, I applaud that. And I would encourage you to do what feels good for you and what feels safe for your nervous system. So I wanted to kind of put that disclaimer out to the people in my own personal network that are going to listen today. Because, not to steal your thunder, but we are going to be talking a little bit about some experiences that I've had since my mom's passing. And so,
And there was one more thing that I was going to point out about everything that you were talking about before.
Sorry,
so no, that's everything that is said is meant to be here. So it's all good.
Thank you.
But I love everything that you said, because your tagline for your business is
Unravel yourself whole.
Unravel yourself whole.
Yes.
Which I literally feel like in your last little bit about your soul's purpose literally was that. So it's so beautiful how this tagline that you've picked however long ago is really playing out in your life right now.
Thank you for calling that out. And you know what it is, just to kind of build on that, it is a beautiful idea to realize that even though I am a coach, even though you're a coach, even though you're certified in breath work, I am still unraveling myself, and I am still, digging into the depths. I am still needing support from friends. I am still needing people to remind me of my tools, and I am still needing to lean into people as I am struggling with things or having a hard day. And I share that because I think when we are in this space, people see you as somebody who has it all together, right?
Yes.
And like I want to say I have it all together, but the fact of the matter is like coaches need coaches, therapists need therapists. We all need support. So yes. I'm continuing to unravel, and I'm continuing to find more pieces of myself to make myself whole. If that makes sense.
I think it's also, I think it's, for one, strong to be able to say, I need help. I'm struggling right now, to be vulnerable in front of other people. So I just think it plays testament to your character as well, because it is hard. A lot of times, or at least how we were brought up, is you just go along with it, or you shove things down. You don't feel it. You don't process it. Okay, someone died, let's just like move on to the next thing. How do we, planning the funeral, doing this, doing that, and we get so stuck in like the busyness of it. But I've seen you so beautifully over the last 8 weeks really lean into, today really sucks, but I'm going to resource myself. This is what I'm doing. Or
I'm going to sit in the tub for 2 hours.
Yes, which is, so I just saw this post the other day that, like, self-love, like, if you say you love yourself and you want to love yourself and you want to show yourself love, like, self-care is that process of showing yourself love. So doing what you can to help yourself and resource yourself, whether that's reaching out to friends, taking time to just go on a walk for 2 hours, or, taking a bath, or whatever it is that you need, leaning into that, because that truly is not weakness. That is strength, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And taking that time to be aware of what is alive today. I think that specifically as women, I read this in Untamed by Glennon Doyle. I don't know if you ever read that book, but she talks a lot about how being selfless is the epitome of compliments as a woman, right? You're a mother and you're selfless. You're selfless for these children. You're a wife and you're selfless for your husband. You're all of these things and you're selfless. But when are you selfless for yourself, right? And so being able to declare out loud and say, hey, today is a bad day. It might be edgy. I'm being fully aware of where I am. And that allows everyone around you to also know, like, I don't have to take it personal if she snaps at me. I don't have to take it personal if she doesn't answer my phone, right? Like, being aware of yourself just allows a different way to move throughout the world.
Yeah. Love that.
Thank you. Thank you. And also takes it back to parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system. Being able to say I'm having a hard day, instead of having a hard day and being in that fight or flight, I can just say I'm in a hard day and I'm going to resource my body so that I don't feel like I need to run away from this. I can be inside of it, because feeling it is how we heal.
Yes. Right? That's like one of my favorite slogans. You have to feel it to heal it. Yeah. It's so good. All right, so moving on to religion. This is like a topic that I like to bring in because it interests me just how people are brought up. It interests me how people are using it in their day-to-day life, if they go by religious or spiritual, or how you view yourself. So if you can explain to me and to the viewers what life looked like growing up. Was religion a part of your life? And then how is it playing out? Maybe just throughout your life and how it's playing.
Yeah, I'll start just by kind of explaining my childhood. So, and I'll explain my childhood, and then you're going to say, oh, Christine, you're a sex, love, and relationship coach. So I'm sure there's a lot in there, and there is. So I was raised Catholic. I went to a Catholic grade school, baptized Catholic, confirmed Catholic, inside of the Catholic grade school until 8th grade. Growing up, continued to go through to church through high school, did the CCD, was confirmed. Catholicism was a real part of my life. Jesus was a real part of my life. God was a real part of my life. But as I grew into adulthood, God really equaled shame to me. As I started to think about who I was, what was right and wrong about me, I really realized that when I thought about God, I resonated with words like control. I resonated with words like shame. I'm being told that God loves me unconditionally, but I think I have to, like, there's just a lot inside there. And, we have talked about this at great length, that I actually think that experience swung me so far away from God and the church. I've always believed in God. I've always believed that there was a higher spirit, a higher power, but the word God really triggered me. Inside of the Catholic Church, I felt like women were less than. We didn't have the ability to hold roles of, I don't want to use the word power. I can't think of the right word at this moment. Right. We couldn't.
Authority, maybe.
Yes. Yes. Women. I mean, our opinions in the Catholic Church, it's the man's opinion. Women in the Bible, the way that I was taught, are women, support, and are, the men are superior. So all of these messages did not sit with me. And I grew into a woman who is a feminist and who probably walks around this world with two middle fingers up to a lot of things because of the way that this all-loving God was delivered to me. Because I was told that he was all loving, all accepting, all forgiving, all of the words that we can think of. But the activities of day-to-day life, the way in which we connected with God, what made you good, what made you bad, really didn't sit with me. And to take that one step further, I'm going to speak totally transparently. So again, I'm a sex, love, and relationship coach. I'm going to talk about sexuality. But I was a child who touched her body very young and explored and noticed that things felt good. And by no fault of anyone, I was made to feel that made me different and bad. And, why on earth would I have so much interest in this sensation, in this body part that is only for your husband, in this body, right? There's so much when you start to talk about sexuality, when you start to talk about self-pleasure, when you start to talk about any of those things, it's just shame, bad. You're bad. You're bad. And I grew up to be a girl who in high school liked boys, and I had boyfriends, and I scared my parents. They were afraid I was going to be the girl who had a baby in high school. So I think that really separated me from God. Unfortunately, my sexuality separated me from God. And in my training and in my exploring, I think that our sexuality is actually a space where God exists, because that is life, that is reproduction, that is life continuing, is through our sexuality, right? I had a really hard time imagining that God would give us an entire system inside of your body that controls sexuality, right? You have hormones, women have a whole cycle that tells us where we should be as it relates to arousal and interest in sex. But if you have that interest, you're bad. But yet your so that didn't make sense to me. It still doesn't make sense to me, right? So that's kind of like the backstory. Before I keep going, is there anything you want to clarify, or I don't want to just keep talking?
No, I mean, there was something that I thought of I was going to ask you, but now it kind of left my mind. So you keep going.
Okay.
If I think
of it. Sure. So I found God in my mom's death. And this is the piece that, this is why it feels so important for me to be here and for me to tell my story, because it also does feel like a way of honoring my parents. And it does feel, it feels really good. So I might have tears, but I'm going to just, if you don't mind, tell the story about how that kind of came to fruition for me. In my own journey of understanding my own personal value, I was asking myself questions about expectations I had for myself, expectations as a mother, expectations as a human, a friend, all of these areas of my life. I'm trying to understand, why do I expect myself to look, be, act a certain way? Mm-hmm. Through that exploration, I decided to ask my mother some questions as well. And I asked my mom how she measured her value as a mother. Mm. This was not ages ago. This was maybe in the last 2 years. Okay. And she told me that she measured her value by her children's relationship to God. Her only job as a mother was to give God to her children. Wow. And my initial, and again, this is where I'm going to talk totally transparent in my experience. And I didn't understand that. I kind of rolled my eyes at it a little bit because of the way that the Catholic Church affected my relationship with God. Yeah. I couldn't understand why it was important for my mom to hand me this shaming, it felt like a condemning spirit, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to heaven or you're going to hell. Oh, I hope I'm not going to hell. Right? So like, I didn't understand, why is this so important to her? So, moved on. That was that.
So nothing happened right away.
No. So that was just like, I know this to be true about my mother. Mm-hmm. And I'm, again, speaking transparently, my parents, my mother and I specifically, had a bit of a labored relationship. Mm-hmm. We went in and out of phases of like deep closeness and deep connection to, areas and times when we did not get along. We clashed, hard words were said, right? And so I just want to acknowledge that existed inside of my relationship. And so when my mom died, I was really noticing at her funeral how many people were saying that, Jerry is just this amazing person and wanted to really deeply to know people. And people were saying these things to me that I was like, this wasn't my exact experience of my mom. Mm-hmm. And I was feeling almost gypped a little bit. Like, why didn't I get to have this exact, I had amazing experience with my mother, don't get me wrong, right. But it was just like the way that people were talking about her, I had a side of pain. Mm. And I understand at a funeral, no one's going to come and tell you all the ways in which these people hurt you. But I was really struggling with that. And I had this realization the night of the funeral that all of the pain between my mother and I was actually because she didn't feel like she was enough as a mother. Mm. She didn't feel like she gave me God. Right? Here I am, now I'm 39, but here I am, this 39-year-old woman who has always been questioning and deconstructing my faith. Mm-hmm. And I have 2 sisters who, I'm not going to speak for them, but I know that they have, they didn't line up completely with the way that God was given to us. So of course she would look at me and think, I'm not enough. I'm not enough. She's not enough. Of course she would look at me and think, I'm not enough because these girls don't, like, I didn't give these children, I didn't do my job. Right? Yeah. So I had this realization that it was never about me not being enough. It was actually about her not feeling like she was enough. So that's kind of like that piece. This is a long story, so my apologies. No. Thank you for sitting along with it. So that realization happened. The other thing that I want to say, and I know that you know this, but my mom died on January 3rd. We live in the Wisconsin area. On January 12th was the day of the funeral, and there was a winter storm. I think some people got up to 18 inches in this area the day of her funeral. And the storm was named Winter Storm Jerry. My mom's name is Jerry, and this is the day of her funeral. So my husband and I, like, after the funeral, had these tears, and we were just saying, this is not a coincidence, right? This is not 2 people showing up at a party wearing the same shirt as a coincidence, but, a funeral for a winter storm on the day of your funeral named after you.
Because Wisconsin hardly has winter storms that we name. For one thing, I don't remember a winter storm that we've named.
Never.
So I'm glad you're telling the story, because I was going to ask if you didn't, because it's a great story.
Yeah. So like that was a part of it. And then, so my husband and I were I put all of these things together in this vulnerable, intimate conversation with my husband. And I was just like, she showed me that there is a higher power in her death by giving me a storm, not just me, but all of us, right? By giving a storm. And, you know, if you think about snow, it's pure, it's cleansing. It's like, I started to look up the meanings of all of these things, and just the nudges continued after that, of all of these things that she just kept showing through nature, through people. Like, she just kept showing me that there is a God. And I just started to follow those nudges and learn. And this has been an 8-week journey, so I'm not going to sit here and be like, now I have this very deep relationship with God and I have it all figured out. But like, she gave me a nugget that she gave me a nudge, right?
Yeah.
She just gave me a nudge, and I do the rest. And so, I mean, and isn't that what God is?
Yeah.
It's free will. It's a choice. So she gave me this winter storm named Jerry. And I have been asking friends like you, you know, we have a couple of mutual friends that are deep in their faith and have a very deep connection to God. And I've just been learning and growing and exploring. And one more thing that I want to say, this has been a long story, but in my dad's death, so he passed away last week, and he was in a home hospice for 9 days prior to that. He passed away on a Sunday. And on Thursday, he had his last rites, the anointing of the sick, with his local priest. And he was so weak, and the priest put his hands on my dad's head, and my dad managed to, you know, like sit himself upright, and the priest took his hands off of his head, and he just sat there. And this is a way that I can see my dad throughout my life, of like, he sat there as though he was feeling the sun on his face and the wind on his face. And he was just in his living room, but just like sat there and was present and felt. And then he sat back and he just said, I am grateful for this present moment and where I am. This man who was vomiting, his body was deteriorating, his life was ending, but he knew he didn't know what was on the other side, right? Like, we don't know what's on the other side, but he knew he was going to be okay. And he knew that his death, like, he knew where he was going, and he was grateful for that.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's amazing too, because literally he just lost his wife, sitting there saying, I'm grateful, you know, like, that's true peace.
True peace. And many people would look at the story and be like, oh my gosh, Christine, how could you have gratitude of like losing your parents in this short time frame? But every single person who knows my parents and knows my family, on the day of my mom's death, I should say that the morning that my mom died, she died on January 3rd in the evening. That morning, we found out that my dad's cancer was no longer treatable. And then she died that night, right?
That's right.
That was an act of God. Right. Because she has been saying since he was diagnosed, I can't, she couldn't bear to be alone. She couldn't bear to be without him. And so every single person was like, this, there's so much peace because this is the way it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
So there is gratitude in that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of the beautiful things that we got to have, the time that we got to have with my dad because of the chain of events.
Yeah. Such a beautiful story. It was not too long. It was just beautiful. Thank you. Yeah.
So my answer to you as it relates to God is that similar to as it relates to my life purpose. I feel like I don't have it figured out. Right. And I like in that's a vulnerable statement, but I think that is what God is like, it's a spirit, a relationship. And it's okay for me to say the word God triggers me. It's okay for me to say I'm really stinking mad at God because of the way he was given to me. I'm really right. And all of those human emotions are safe and welcome. And that is how he loves me, right? He loves me. He holds me in where I am and says, I accept you in your anger. That is the unconditional love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was really good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It is a lot.
That's good.
But I made it with no tears.
Yeah.
So
but even if you had tears, that's okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in all of this, what would you, going through all of this and not, like, I guess I should back up and say, before your mom died, how did you feel about your faith, your, like, having a relationship with God, like having it in your life, making it a priority? Like, was it there at all, or how was?
So that's an interesting question, because I think that I have always believed in God. But I think the real answer is I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah, that is, I'm gonna stop you right there for a minute, because I think that's really powerful, because I think that resonates a lot with me, because growing up in the church as well, I think we are taught and told to believe a certain way. But it's very interesting that, like, Catholics are taught to think one thing, and then Lutherans another, and then you have so many different religions, and it's almost like we're pitting each other against each, or pitting ourselves against each other, just based on labels. And so, yeah. So
and religion, really, I think, unfortunately rolls into politics as well. So my relationship with God before that, like I said, was like, I didn't really know. I've for a long time have said that I was spiritual. Detaching myself from the Catholic Church felt like a little bit of, like, I did it with a little bit of energy of two middle fingers up of like, I don't have to be Catholic, I'm a grown-ass adult, like that kind of an energy. So there was a lot of anger around the word God. I still, sitting here, I'm like, my friend Brittany and I talk a lot. I'm like, I don't actually really want God to be a man. She's like, God is a spirit, and our human brains need to make him a man, because that is how we can relate with him. I'm like, oh, okay, so God actually can be whatever I want him to be.
I think that triggers, I'll stop you right there, because I think that triggers a lot of people. At least I know growing up, because I specifically remember there is a song, and I'm not going to remember what the song is now, but she said in this song, it talks about God being her. Like, if she, something about God, if she, something or other. I can't think of it right now. But I remember how triggering that was to people. And I remember conversations around this song, because it was very popular. It was played on the radio a lot. And I just remember there being so much about it that, and I took on all of, what my parents and the church and everybody said about it. And so I remember having this visceral feeling and, cemented beliefs about, like, God can only be him. You cannot call it she, you cannot call it anything else. Like, it has to be him. And so I do feel like it is confusing for people, because, or for people that have, like, a father wound,
So let me ask you this, though. Hearing that God can only be a man, what does that tell you? Like, what did that make you think about yourself as a woman?
That's a really good question. I think for me, because I have this, and by nature, very people pleasing, whatever you say goes. Like that's how I was up until I would say about the last like year or two. That whatever you told me it was, that's what I'll believe. And so however I need to act to make that okay, I'm just gonna do. And I didn't question a lot. I didn't make it anything one way or the other. I was just like, well, this is what it is. And I didn't question. And so I don't really think I had a lot of feelings around it. I just remember being like, okay, well, this is what it is. So I can't feel a different way because this is just what it is.
So me as someone who has turned into, I think that God being a man is part of the reason I'm like this burning feminist.
Oh, and I know that there are lots of people that I've talked to that don't want to have a relationship with God or don't even want to talk about God specifically for the father wounding piece, because there's so much wounding with their own father that looking at God as a father figure or the father or like the Godfather above us, you know, that completely turns people off because of the wounding that they have from their own father. And so it's very interesting to look at it a different way and, you know, to really think like, okay, it can just be like this spirit. And it's also actually making me think about The Shack, which is funny because I hadn't thought about this movie in a really long time, but you sent it to me the other day. There was like a piece of it that you sent.
The scene, for anyone who is listening that has seen the movie, the scene that I sent to Jessica was the scene where he meets with wisdom in the cave. So just to put context.
Yeah. And it's just watching that was interesting to me because, and now it's been a while since I've seen it, but like she is basically supposed to be God, right?
No.
Or is she?
She's wisdom.
Wisdom. Okay.
She is the only character out of the people who visit him at the shack that is not, because God is there, Jesus is there, and the Holy Spirit is there. Those are the three characters inside the shack. And then he meets wisdom inside of the cave.
Right. Okay. But isn't one of the three a female?
Holy Spirit,
the Holy Spirit. Okay. Yes. And so I remember watching that movie thinking, well, that can't be right because they're all male and how can it, you know? And so I remember that almost triggering me a little bit. And it also was a big topic in the church. Like, don't watch that movie. That movie is, you know.
God is a woman in that movie, actually. Now that you're saying that,
and
God is a woman.
That's what I was thinking, because I think that's what really triggered people.
And she said that, and I wish I could remember the actress's name, but she is a
she's in quite a few movies.
Either way, she says to him, because he says, I thought God was a man. And she says, because the reason why he is there is because a man killed his daughter.
Yes.
And so she said, you wouldn't feel safe if I came as a man.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
So that is a really, really interesting call out of like, yes, God actually is exactly what you need. And again, if you take that even one step further and you believe, so now my firm belief is, you know, I think the Catholic Church tells me that God is out there and I need to be a certain way. I need to be a good girl to be able to be with him. But I think the reality is that God actually lives inside of each of us. He lives around us too, right? God is in the trees. God is in the grass. God is in the sky.
Yeah.
But the real beautiful thing is God is in you. And so when my heart is hurting and I say, I need a friend, I need to be held, like that is actually God holding me. Like, yes, it's you in your arms. It's your physical arms, but God gave you those arms and God put us in each other's lives and God made it so that we have a safe, connected relationship. And I was nudged to call, right? It's like all of those
So we could
things.
be here right now having these conversations that will hopefully help somebody who might be struggling with this piece themselves. And it's not that we have all the answers, but we're exploring. And that's what I want this whole podcast to be about, is just being open enough to sit and listen and have conversations in a way that feels safe and not in your face. And that, okay, we're telling you our experiences and what we feel and have gone through, but it's for you to make your own decision, your own conclusion on that yourself, and do your own research, and be okay with questioning, and be okay with not having all the answers, because nobody has all the answers. We never will have all the answers. And so if there's somebody, your pastor or your, I'm just going to say pastor because coming from the church, but it's like if they tell you this is the only way, it's the end all be all, I mean, that's not right either, because there's this pastor and that pastor are going to have two different opinions. So which one is right?
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. I want to go back to the word that you used, open, that it's about being open. So Jess and I have been talking a lot over the past few weeks about my experience with different people and the way that I'm being supported. And, we spoke very transparently that my husband and I got in a solid argument recently. And it is all because of sort of the emotional state of things. But I took myself on a walk because I was activated and I couldn't be around him in that moment in time. And I took myself on a walk and I put in my earbuds and I put on music that was connected. I put on music that I would maybe meditate to. I put on music with affirmations in the lyrics, right? So I intentionally was trying to like fill my soul with goodness. And the second song that I listened to was all about surrendering and keeping your heart open. And so I want to acknowledge that I think that the way that I responded to the God that was given to me was by closing my heart. I want to acknowledge that the way that I responded to my husband when he activated me was by closing my heart. I want to acknowledge that I have, with friends, situations where I have closed my heart. And I think that really the truth of God and his love is that it is there to keep you open, right? It is all about keeping your heart open.
I love that.
And I want to say one more thing about that, and that is for people who know me, my posture and my way of being is very hunched. I have a lot of pain in my back body, my upper back body, and between my shoulder blades. And I now intentionally catch myself when I'm feeling sad, when I'm feeling things, when I'm not feeling connected, that I roll in and I pull my heart to my back body, my shoulders go forward, and I have my head down, and I am very much, my heart, my physical heart is closed, and my whole self feels closed when I'm like that. And so my own physical practice over the last 8 weeks specifically has been around doing movements, or if I feel myself feeling off, like intentionally trying to pull my shoulders back or put my head up and roll my neck around, and just intentionally trying to keep myself open in maybe an exaggerated way to train my sympathetic nervous system that's in fight or flight. Goes like that. I use my parasympathetic, my skills in my parasympathetic space to work on this.
I love that.
So I thought I'd bring it back full circle.
Which is great, because I was literally, before you started talking about that, going to ask the next question after we had a time, was to ask what kind of practices you're doing to give yourself the capacity to be here to talk today, 7 days after your, or however many days it's been since your dad has passed, not even 7 days since your dad has passed, and 7 weeks since your mom has passed.
So it's really interesting because my mom's death, my mom died and we went right into take care of dad, right? And so truthfully, I didn't feel a lot of things when my mom first died, and I acknowledged, I was like, I know that I'm not feeling things. I know that I'm dissociating. I said to my husband that I felt like I was walking into a shitstorm and like allowing it to happen and like knowing what was coming, and I just needed to like go. And so this week has been, since my dad died, it has been acknowledging tears are coming. I'm really tired.
Yeah.
So I think that as it relates to practices, it's really more right now about like tuning in. Tuning in and noticing what I need. One day I sat in the tub for 2 hours. One day I went for a 2-hour walk. It's like, what does my body need today? Because it's not different, or it's going to be different.
Yeah.
And I think on your podcast, you do desire to talk to people about their daily routines. And so I thought about that question because I have shame around my daily routine, because a daily routine scares the crap out of me because it's something to fail at.
Oh, ooh, yeah.
Right? Yeah. My life doesn't have a lot of consistency. I'm married to a firefighter who works, a rotating 24-hour schedule. I have 3 children. They're in different things, different nights. And so I have to acknowledge that my Monday doesn't look like my Friday, doesn't look like my Saturday. And this Saturday is going to look different than next Saturday. And next month might look completely different than this month looked. So when I acknowledge that and I think about, I'd really love to do yoga every day. Nope, I cannot ever put every day at the end of it. It has to be, I really desire to do yoga more and set a goal. Right? Or I really desire to bring this into my life 3 days a week. Or the everyday thing gives me so much anxiety and just such a big space to fail. So I wanted to say that to you as it relates to daily activities, because I think that there's diagnosed ADHD here. So I think there's a lot of people that maybe don't start something because they're afraid of failing.
That's really good. I love that. That is so true. So true. Because I am the same way. I don't do the same thing every day. I do have, I like to get up and do certain things. Like my gratitude practice, I've made something that I do before I get out of bed. And that's just literally like a checklist in my mind. Okay, what am I grateful for today? What can I do to start my day off with positivity instead of grabbing my phone? Now, don't get me wrong. There are some times where I will grab my phone first and be scrolling and be like, wait, shoot, nope, I need to focus on my gratitude first, start myself off that way. So, and it's not that a daily practice has to be something that is 2 hours long, or that is, it can be literally something that's 5 minutes that you just take your time on. And
and that you do in your bed.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So
it's beautiful.
I know.
That is very beautiful. And I also want to just call out real quick that you said sometimes you do pick up your phone. Sometimes you do start with a scroll. So let's acknowledge that that is not a space to give yourself shame.
Right.
Because if we lean into the opportunities to shame ourselves, we're going to walk around with a big old fat coat of shame on, right? So that is a practice to say, I picked up my phone. That's okay. I'm going to put it back down and I'm going to think about my gratitude now. So I think that is an important message as well.
Yes. And I love that you talked about the shame piece, because I think that is so huge. Like, there's so many people, like, shame is the lowest vibration before death. So whatever we can do to get ourselves out of shame, out of a shame spiral, like the second you start thinking like, oh, this is terrible, be like, nope, stop. It's okay. I'm human. We are all human. Nobody is going to do everything perfect. And that is okay. That is completely okay.
Which, quick shout out to diving into your sexuality and understanding your sexuality. Because that is a space that,
and we didn't even get into that.
I know, and that's okay. That's okay. But that is the space. Like, for me, sexuality was the deepest, darkest space of shame. So that was like, I'm gonna just 2 feet go into the deep end, and I'm gonna grab this thing that I know I carry so much wounding in, and I'm going to understand it, and I'm going to give myself permission, and I'm going to celebrate it, and I'm going to embrace it and be it.
I love that.
Right?
I love that. Yes.
Like your sexual self is a part of you.
Yeah.
Period. Right? Yeah. You have reproductive organs that are created for sex. Right. You have, hormones in your body that are created for sex. So if we don't acknowledge that our sexual selves are a part of us and we push that aside, then there's no space for full total self-love until you acknowledge that this piece of you exists.
That's so good.
So quick plug to hopping into your sexuality.
No, I love that. I love that. And I don't know where we're at time-wise, but I'd love to get into all that if we can, or we might just have to have a whole nother episode because there's just so much to it. But there is a question that I do want to ask is, how were you received when you dove into sexuality, being a sex love relationship coach, all of that, and maybe even a step further or earlier than that, with stepping away from religion, stepping away from Catholicism, when you were younger? How was that received in your family? I'm speaking into your mostly your family, because that is usually the people that are most activated by us leaving the church and things.
I want to speak fully transparently and say that I always felt supported and celebrated by my parents.
That's beautiful.
In that they were going to love me no matter what I did. But I will say that I do not believe they understood.
Yeah.
I don't believe that a lot of people in my life fully understand. And that's a part of the process as well. I mean, you even know that someone in my community made a comment to me, I think, what was it, 3 months ago, and I was thrown all off in a tizzy of feeling judged and this person thinks I'm bad or dirty or gross because I explore sexuality. So it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
But it wasn't awful, I guess is what I want to say.
Yeah.
No one was ever you're this terrible, bad person, shame on you. But there was a lot of I remember at one point in time, my mom said to me that it was confusing to her because she's so much more than her sexuality. So,
and she said those words too?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, and I, when I step back and think about that, I think about relationships and the way in which we place value on the type of relationship that we're in. And so I think it's very common that people will say, sex is not the most important part of my relationship. So I think that is sort of the energy in which she was coming from, of I am so much more than sex. And absolutely, absolutely not going to sit here and pretend we have to be actively engaging in sexual activity at all times. But for me, I believe that my uterus, I believe that all of the parts that make me a woman are my life creative force, right? So not only do I have the capacity to birth human beings out of my body, but this is a portal of creativity. So once you start studying, and I know that you know this, but once you start studying energy, sexual energy and creative energy are very, very, very connected, one and the same, actually. And so for me, my sexual self is a huge part of myself, because when I'm tapped into my womb, I can keep my heart open. When I'm tapped into my womb, I have the ability to caregive. When I'm tapped into my womb, I have the ability to be aggressive and protective if I need to be, right? When I tap into my womb, I feel as though I get to embody all parts feminine, all parts woman, even masculine. to me, that is just where like essence lives.
Yeah.
So it's not about the act of intercourse.
Right.
It's not about the act of being a sex coach. Isn't about talking about BDSM or, sure, it can be if that's what you want to talk about me with, talk about with me, sure. But it's really about the core, the essence of who you are.
Yeah.
So I think that when I met with resistance from people that I know, it's a lack of knowing and a lack of understanding.
Yeah. Sometimes I think it's fear too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Which could be a whole nother podcast in and of itself, of like fear about female sexuality specifically. Yeah. Specifically. So
it's gonna have to for sure do another episode, because so much more we could talk about.
But it is, I work for a Catholic organization in my full-time job. So there is always a little bit of fear inside of me of like, can I be my full true self? Can I express myself and my beliefs, right? Like, working in the field of human resources, you don't have a lip piercing, you don't have tattoos, right? And so it's like, through claiming that part of myself, I've been able to shed corporate Christine and like realize that Christine isn't my true essence. She served me and she continues to serve me, but she's not all of me. So yeah,
that's so cool.
It's been a wild ride.
Yeah.
And I recognize that not everybody is, prepared to meet their sexuality in a way that they are, on a retreat in Costa Rica with 100 women and, clothing optional. I recognize that is scary to a lot of people. But I love to imagine a world where we can be freely connected to ourselves and freely express ourselves, and not fear or judge what could come out of that.
Yeah. That's such a good place to leave off.
I love it.
Good.
I love it. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you for being here,
doing this. Yes. And we made a little day out of it.
It's been great.
So this has been really nourishing for my heart and my soul. So
yes, find some friends who can be in your corner. You're a guy or a girl, just find your soul friends, because they're truly life-giving, that's for sure.
And a little piece of God in each of us, right?
Yes. So tell our viewers what you are doing, how they can find you. Are you taking clients, all of that kind of stuff?
Thank you. So like I said earlier, the Intuitive Unraveling is the name of the business that I coach under. So you can find me on socials. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Just the Intuitive Unraveling. I also have a website, theintuitiveunraveling.com. And on my website, I post any activities I'm doing, any events I'm hosting. Right now, I'm only doing one-on-one coaching. I am working on a program, but it is not ready yet. It is a program that is in the process of birthing itself through, this deep time. So I think that the people who are attracted to it will really, really, really find some tools to connect to the shadowy parts of them that they have pushed aside.
I love
so but I, as it relates to coaching, I coach women, I coach men. I consider myself to coach people on desires. So you don't have to come to me only if you want to talk about sex or sexuality or, have a better orgasm or anything like that. It doesn't have to be about that. It could be, I just desire more pleasure in my life. I desire to be more connected to my partner. I desire to grow a business, right? Like it's really truly just about desire, and sexuality and sensuality is just a space that I specialize in.
I love that. And so, side note for next time, when you come back, when we have you back on, we're going to talk about pleasure because we didn't talk about that. And that was the question I was going to ask you earlier.
Yes.
But we will, that's going to be another episode that you're going to have to come back for. So
it'll be a good one. It'll be a good
one. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you, Christine, for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for doing this work. Thank you for having these conversations. It's not easy. And I know that anytime we put ourselves out there and open ourselves vulnerably, it can be scary. So I celebrate you in doing this.
I appreciate that.
So thank you very much.
All right, till next time. Oh, thank you for listening to this episode. I hope you loved listening as much as I loved recording. Each and every conversation that I have here on this podcast just lights my soul on fire. I love having conversations where we explore and challenge our ways of thinking. So if you've resonated with anything here and you're looking for more, please connect with me on Facebook in my Soul Deep community group, which is free. I'm also offering all my listeners a free month in my Soul Deep Connection membership. I have poured my heart and soul into this membership, bringing you resources to help you grow into the best and truest version of yourself. I've used my knowledge and experience as a nurse, combined with my knowledge and experience as a coach, breathwork facilitator, and somatic embodiment guide. This library consists of breathwork, kriyas, and other resources and modalities that will help you learn about and give you the healing tools to live the life you've been dreaming about, and to help you find your true passion and zest for life again. This library of resources is vital for everyday maintenance. And on top of the library of resources, there are live monthly calls, ranging from breathwork, kundalini, full moon or new moon circles, as well as guest speakers on a variety of different topics, from decluttering to marketing to sisterhood and all things healing and wellness. So make sure you join today to get you back on track to living that thriving life that you are longing for. Remember, the first month is free, and my hope is that you find so much value that staying is an absolute no-brainer. It really is everything that I was looking for as I started my journey, and so much more. I truly hope to see you inside my community. And if you haven't yet, please follow me here and on social. Like and subscribe, and make sure to share your favorite episode with your friends and community. And when you do, make sure to tag me in that post. If you tag me, you'll be entered into a drawing for that month where you can win a free one-to-one session, breathwork or coaching session with me. All the links will be in the show notes here below. Until next time, Soul Deep fam, and in the words of my dear friend Mary Lacey Banks, I'm holding you so tight in a thought hug.